here we are. We're in from the first coat, which is a opaque cherry red. Actually did add quite a bit of the Bordeaux in with this cherry red. And the second coat is going to be straight up translucent Bordeaux lacquer. But first I wanted to blend in this sort of fretboard edge that we have here. Peel off this tape. And I gotta do that on both sides. This is suspended, it's not touching. Now we're peeling off the tape to expose the raw rosewood edge and side dot markers. Then we'll take it back down and spray over top. We need to do a little bit of scraping along this edge because the tape line wasn't perfectly straight. This is a fresh X-Acto blade. This first opaque coat was to cover up all those black discolorations, those old stains that were making this neck look so awful. The next coat of more translucent bluish red Bordeaux dye lacquer will kind of bring the neck into the same shade as the body. And here it is. So next, getting this old tape off the old lacquer is very important to drip naphtha onto the tape as you peel it away. That way we don't have little chips of lacquer ending up on the tape and destroying the finish. It's a bit messy, so within a few seconds of peeling off the tape I need to go back over the lacquer with a paper towel and more naphtha, get the residue off there. It's either tape it or deal with the overspray all over the body, which doesn't sound like as much fun as peeling tape. I just wear a glove and go real slow. It's a real pain in the rump roast. But look at the color on that heel. That's the color right there. I'm going to add a little pore filler, which is going to be a dark brown, and that will even make it more of a woody color. These finish repair jobs are so important. That's why you guys are all watching. Because they make a lot of money, but most importantly, it's because we play the guitar with our eyes. Yeah, we look at it, we romanticize with it, we basically play it with our eyes. But don't get me wrong, this tape thing is a big mess. It's all stuck to everything here. And this is naphtha. Naphtha to clean. Now we fill the pores. So first I went in with a razor blade and I just picked off any little imperfections, little white spots, pieces of lint, whatever. And now I want to protect this color coat before I pour fill. I want to scuff this up just a little bit. And I want to wipe on some poly. Just one coat of wipe on poly as a barrier. And then That way when I go to clean up the pore fill the next day, smooth it out and sand it, I don't sand off any color. Don't want to sand any of the color. And I choose the Wipe On Poly for this barrier coat because it won't react with the solvents in the lacquer coat. It won't smear or smudge the color coat. And it's very thin. But it protects. I'm going to do a little grain filling on that neck. I'm gonna say a little goes a long way. I'll get this mixed up, and I'm going to add 1 drop of dark walnut. Oops, 2 drops. Crap, hope that's not too dark. I'm going to get this all mixed up and see how she looks. Hopefully it's not too dark. I'm going to try brushing it on. Let it harden there for a couple minutes, and then I'll kind of wipe it off and see if some of it stays down in the pores. It was a little too light in color, so I threw in 5 more drops of the dark walnut stain. So I've got a total of 7 drops of the dark walnut. Yeah, much darker. I'll go over this area again, see if I can't cover up that light stuff, and then yeah, you got to give it at least 4 or 5 minutes, and then I can kind of go over it with that gray Scotch-Brite pad, and it stays down in there pretty good. I just wiped down my first coat of the Wipe On Poly, and good results. You can see there's a bit of grain going on, and you can also see that there's, it's telegraphing through those old stain lines. It's not 100% opaque. It was enough to camouflage the old craziness, but not enough to remove it entirely. We've still got evidence. And another crazy thing that we figured out was that it had 2 serial numbers. I don't know if you can see from this angle, but we'll talk about this some more. Well, I'm really glad to be to this point on this job, because the rest of it's just, familiar territory for me. Never seen a neck quite like this, and hopefully I never will again, but clear coat and the electronics work is very familiar for me. So, if you hadn't watched last week's video, I stripped the neck and all that, and in this week's we're gonna be looking at the weirdness of the situation now that we've seen how there's 2 different serial numbers involved in this guitar. I'm going to put a few coats of French polish on it, and I'll do that all day, actually probably for the next couple days, and then we'll probably fill the rest of these pores, because there are some remaining pores. I like the darker color that I got in there, which will telegraph through the final finish, but I want to make sure it's smoother than this. But so here we can see the 2 serial numbers. It kind of looks like a cluster mess from this angle, but the one you see more definitively is the 846169, which is 1966, which is the one that's underneath. And then the serial number 877040 is more faint because they done it later on when they, I guess, put the body on, because that's the serial number that's on the tag inside the F-hole is the 877040, and that dates to 1968. So, like, it got sent back to Gibson a couple years later, and they rebodied this neck, and put a new thicker coat of lacquer over top of the old coat, which didn't stick very well and looked like hell. But the body still has two coats on it. That's why we can see like different checking lines. So the different checking lines, first you'll see these long checking lines, and then when you get closer up you'll see these cross grain lines underneath. So the two different coats have different checking lines. It might just be a matter of time before that starts flaking off. I'm not sure. We'll just have to wait and see. So now I'm off to the races with my shellacking today. I use these envelopes that I find in the mailbox. I don't know who keeps leaving them there. I guess they're maybe bills or something. But that helps me to make sure that my pad's not too wet. And I'll just wipe today. Probably come up here and do at least, I don't know, 10 coats a day. Seems to work out good for me. Just like that. So, probably check back in a day or two and see how this is coming along. And if you want to look back at last week's video where I stripped the finish off the neck and start working on the truss rod rescue, I'll put a link below so you can click on that. After a few days of French polishing with my shellac, I realized I needed a much smoother, thicker surface than I was getting. So I'm going to take it down and spray some lacquer, but I need to get the oil up out of the shellac first. So I take a Scotch-Brite pad with mineral spirits, scuff up the whole thing. That gives me a nice tooth for the new lacquer to bite onto. And then I take naphtha on a paper towel, and that pretty much transfers all the mineral oil up into the paper towel. Mineral oil is used while French polishing to keep the pad from sticking to the project, but it's easily removed with naphtha and mineral spirits. Now that it's prepped, I'll take it down to the spray window and shoot it with some lacquer. Well, I ended up spraying some lacquer over top of the shellac and stuff. You can do that as long as you're mindful of not doing a few things. I was careful to get all the oil up out of the shellac first, and I never went to that drying oil, the walnut oil. I never used that. I only used the mineral oil, and I was sure to get it all off there with naphtha and stuff. But I also ended up taping the body and putting it in this bag so that the overspray wouldn't get on it. And with an old body like this, I just want to re-emphasize how important it is. If you put tape on it, take the tape and take some of the tack off the tape before you stick it on the lacquer. And then, when you're ready to take it off, don't let it sit on there for a week while you're waiting, or a month while you're waiting for the lacquer to cure. Get it off there the next day or a few hours later. Just make sure it doesn't stay on there too long. And then, just be really careful when you take it off. Some of this is low tack, so I'm not too worried about it. See that? Right there? This is what I do. I take naphtha and I drip it. Little drips of it drops right on the tape, and that releases it really cleanly from the lacquer. It just comes right off. So just a little warning, because there have been significant damage to guitars from people taping them. Alright, here it is, guys. The electronics in this thing. This is the Sidewinder or Mudbucker pickup, as some people call it. This is my one-string dulcimer. It allows me to hook up an output jack to the circuit with alligator clips and listen to it through the amp. By finding this circuit on the internet, or this diagram, I realized that there is a choke inside this guitar. This must be this. I was wondering why there are all these wires inside this guitar, and it turns out in here, which I haven't been able to take apart because one of these screws is stripped and the other one's broken off. This one I can get out, but I figured, why mess with it if I don't need to? I was asking Dan Earlywine about this choke thing because he was working on a 335, the one he found after all these years. He got it back, and he was talking about the choke, and I asked him, what is a choke? I've worked on the 345, and I've worked on these things, but what is it as far as an electronic component goes? And he said it's an inductor. So you need it to get the rotary switch to work and to get this push button to work. So I got the volume working, and I got the push button working. Hear that? It got real woofy. Now the push button doesn't work until I connect the leads to the choke. There's two wires coming in and out of the choke, and I figured the yellow one is the one that makes it work, and the black one is just to ground. And once I figured that out from experience and clicked it together, I got it working. This tone potentiometer isn't working as far as I can tell, but I think I'll put it back together as it is now because he wants this guitar to be as original as possible. He's even going to go out and find the original, like he'll pay to find the original knobs to put on this thing. So I actually just got this tone knob to work. I didn't realize that the two pots weren't grounded together, so this black alligator clip right here finishes the circuit. Total mud. See, without that ground wire linking the two together, this does nothing except make noise. So boom, just like that, it works. Just running a ground wire between the two. I know this looks like spaghetti, but it works. And this is, without this, I'd be in hollow body hell, baby. That is a place you don't want to be. Getting everything in a hollow body guitar to find out it doesn't all work. Whew! That is a bad, bad place for a guitar tech to be. So the short pieces of exercise tubing. The short pieces of exercise tubing are to help pull the pot's shafts up through the holes. I just reach in through the holes with the needle nose pliers and pull them up like that. And the string, I use the long string with a little nut tied onto it just to pull the jack up through the body. Nothing too scientific there. And that's it. I tested it a bunch of times, so it's working. We can go find him some knobs. Okay, it's been a whole week, can you believe it? This Ultra Flow lacquer feels so butt-ass smooth, I gotta tell you, I love it. Now I got a choice to make. Do I want to leave it all flat, or do I want to shine up some of it? I decided to shine, or bring the headstock to a gloss, the sides, the back, and then leave this transition here all the way down the way it is. And the reason for that is because it feels so good, but also as he plays it, it'll start to shine up on its own, and it'll have a really nice feel. It won't get sticky like some finishes get sticky. Some nitro finishes sometimes. But this was only 3 coats, 1 day of lacquer spraying. So I'm using the 3000 grit Trizac pad and mineral spirits. And the reason for the mineral spirits is because the front of the headstock is shellac, and I don't want any water getting in contact with that. Alright, now I'm going to use the Meguiar's 105 Ultra Cut, and I'm just going to put a little bit on this pad. And this should bring it up to a nice gloss. Glossy-er, we'll say. Glossy-er. Still didn't fill 100% of the pour, but we'll live. And in last week's episode, I had filled that in so that transition is nice, level transition. And I polished up this area right here just so that the two areas marry with each other. But once I get to this area here, that is a back to the flat finish, because it's just so good. Well, here we go. Got her all finished up. It's feeling really good. Nice and smooth. And it's sounding pretty good too. I kind of like the way it sounds. There's a baritone switch is what they call it. Tone and volume are working. I kind of like the thunder of the baritone. Thanks for hanging out with me today, guys. I really appreciate you tuning in, subscribing, and sharing. If you want to support the channel, you can go to my page or my channel and click on the links, and it'll take you to spring, and you can get a t-shirt, coffee mug, hoodie, whatever you like. We got the Harpeth logo on the, we got a small one on the front, and a big one on the back, or a big one on the front. There's a whole bunch of options, different colors available. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll catch you later.